Awesome. Okay, so welcome to the final week of the new tutor training. And today we have one thing on our agenda, which is to look at this item. Basically, we're done. So this is week 5, and then we graduate you to being the full tutor in our organization. So I'm really excited. You're the first cohort to go through this new process, and it is going to be a very valuable resource for the organization for a long time, I think. So thank you very much. Okay, so let's look at our final checklist for the day. We have an assignment review of the reading and the video call lessons you've conducted. Then we'll do a comprehensive review of everything we've learned, basically a summary. Finally, we'll look at a criteria to evaluate the lesson plans which you created for today. And we'll go through some feedback, and as a bonus, we'll look at some interesting features of English. So let's get started. Okay, so week 5 assignment review. Do you have any questions from the week 5 reading? How about Britt?
The evaluation form at the end of that, are we supposed to fill that out and send it in, or?
If you like, I think it would be helpful.
It seems like a lot of the questions didn't seem relevant.
So which questions?
And like it said, did you like the Challenger series? I don't even know what that is.
You haven't used it yet. So I guess that is when you start working with your students on a regular basis. And if you decide to use the Challenger series, which is the paper book that we have in the Literacy Center library, which you can use depending on the level of your student. Yes, you've never seen it, so you don't know it, but we did mention it.
Yeah, and I don't know when I'm going to actually go into the center, because my student and I both don't feel comfortable meeting in person or going out anywhere yet. So I don't know when I'll see it.
One thing you could do is arrange a time to pick it up if you need it. It might not be relevant if you have something that works for your student, but if you decide that you want to try it, you can pick up one that's appropriate for your student's level and then scan pages, and you can have that PDF on a screen share if you want. So those are exercises. But I think equivalent things already exist online, so you could use that also.
Okay.
Yeah, so that part of the document does not include any evaluation for the new training or our video calls. It's a new thing.
Yeah.
Okay, good question. Tom?
Yes, I actually did, but you answered my question about the evaluation. This, with regard to, well, I have actually a couple of questions, but the other question I had about the reading was, you had mentioned, obviously we did not do the April Multicultural Extravaganza.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that I should put into like kind of the back of a lesson plan? I mean, with my student, as I mean, I'm a little tentative. Her level, her grasp of the language is, I guess, something, looking through the back of our book, kind of somewhere between low intermediate and high intermediate. I just didn't know whether that was something that, you know, I could hold off on, or I just didn't, or when there was a kind of time frame on maybe when this would occur, maybe in the fall or something.
We don't have it rescheduled yet because we don't know how the previous event could be adapted to a non-group setting or to a virtual setting. So we do intend to have some equivalent event, whether that is after the pandemic has a solution and it's safe for us to meet again, or if we have something online that's the same thing. That said, you could always keep your student abreast of what we have planned as far as events, because we have a lot of fun things. We've had a lot of fun things, and we're going to continue we're determined to make sure that we don't lose that fun aspect of what we do. Now, you have fun when you're working with your student, but we want to have the organizational fun at the same time. So when there are notifications about what comes out month by month, then you can look at those emails, because probably you'll receive the news by email, and say to your student, this event is coming up if you're interested. Now, the multicultural event is the largest one. It's like a yearly anniversary, 1 more year of doing this, which is great. That's when we have the essay readings. So usually a student can write some substantial piece of personal composition that they can read at that time. So if you want to strive for that as a goal, that'd be great also. So someday we can get your English up to a level where we can participate, where you can get up in front of people and read if you want. So yeah. All right. Any other questions? How about Ruth?
Well, my question related to the essay, because after meeting with my student, I was concerned about that, the writing, and because she didn't even want to read the article initially, so that was just a suggestion. I mean, it turned out okay, but I was wondering about that with levels, if that's just, I can talk to her about it. Does it matter? Like, does it have to be an essay? Could it be a paragraph if I was able to get her to do something like that? Or?
Paragraph is fine. Maybe a haiku. But yeah, don't worry about that. In fact, if you have a long way to go before your student is comfortable at that, to do that kind of thing, then it just means that you will have a bigger accomplishment at the time when the student is ready, or if they want to.
Okay.
So yeah, you can work up to it. If this year is not, your goal is not to make an essay that can be read, your goal could be to make a paragraph. And that's it, because then the next year, the goal will be to make 2 paragraphs.
Right.
And next year, 3 paragraphs, and you're basically already there.
Okay.
All right, great question.
My student gave me an essay already that she wrote, and it's 2 pages long. It's huge. she's an advanced student.
So
And
you
yeah, she's pretty good.
should definitely publish.
What do you mean publish?
In a semi-joking way, we do collect the essays, and we have a little booklet. We don't sell it. I mean, it's just like, hey, look what we did this year. So if you're at that level, please, by all means.
Yeah, I'm going to correct it, and we're going to talk about it. And when we get the finished product, then I send it to someone. Is that?
Yeah, you could email it.
Email.
Tammy would be the one who would handle that. So just email it to her.
Okay.
All right, cool. So let's go to the second part, which is the results of your video calls. So how did it go? Starting from the bottom, Ruth, did you do a video call with your student?
I did. On Saturday morning, I had a nice call with Masha. It went really well, I thought. It was very helpful to find out she was not really interested in trying to read the article initially. So then we continued the conversation in the class, like the lesson, for about 45 minutes, and really found out a lot about her, because I was telling her about my family and she told me about hers. And then I had pulled one of those very beginning articles, the level 1, 2, or 3, and I had pulled all 3, and I was starting her with the lower level, and if she could do that, we would go to a higher level. But it was about a Mayan template that they found, and she read it. She read the whole thing. She just didn't understand it. So she could,
It's kind of interesting.
So she understood some words, but primarily she didn't understand it. But she could definitely read it and everything. So now I know where our jumping off point is. But then after an hour of our lesson, I was exhausted, because it's very exhausting. And then she's like, then she's like, now will you teach Jima, who's her 9-year-old son, who was going to do a second lesson? I was like,
3 hours.
I was like, yeah. So like, 'cause like he's at a much more, I think, advanced level than she is. So I didn't know how to really handle that. I said I'd split them in half. I don't know how you guys handle things like that.
And that is at your discretion.
Oh,
No,
okay.
whatever you want to do. But it's
I was
interesting.
I was supposed to talk to her today at 5, but she wasn't there, so I don't know really how to handle that. I mean, I have mentioned in the past how she wasn't there when we were supposed to meet, and so this is the second time that's happened. So I mean, when she is there, she's great, and it was very good. But there are a couple of times when she's not there, and I understand that occasionally, but it was 2 out of 3 times so far I've kind of not made touch. So I don't know, is that normal or is this unusual or?
Well, it's the beginning of the relationship. So see how it progresses. But
Okay.
there is responsibility on the student's part to respect the teacher and respect the learning process.
Mhm.
And my advice in that situation is to talk about it. Because if you can't underestimate the influence of actually bringing up your feelings in the situation.
Oh, okay.
So just, if she is not taking this seriously, she should understand why she should.
Okay.
Yeah, very interesting. Do you know why she didn't want to read the article?
I think she just I think it was because she just didn't want to speak it out loud, and like it was just a trying, telling her it's a safe space, and I'm like, well, let's just read it together. And then when she was, but once she got going, she was okay. But I think she was just nervous about reading out loud. She didn't think she could do it, but in fact she could. And I, she was probably thinking it was a newspaper that she might pick up in the grocery store, but these are articles that are being pulled especially so that they do fit with words like, what is it, the 1,000 words that most people know. It was what the newspaper was saying, so it's the easiest words. So
Interesting.
I think it made it a little big. It ended it on a good note, I think. So it was positive because she was very happy. She was able to get through it. I mean, she didn't understand a lot of it, but she was able to read it, and she was very happy.
Awesome job.
So then I was like, okay, bye-bye. I was like, ended on a good note.
Cool. So let's move to Tom. How were your results, Tom?
Not fantastic. In addition to many of the other fiascos of the week, I had difficulty getting in touch with Ingrid. But about 5 minutes after I emailed you, Tim, at about 3:30, we did manage to connect, and we are set up for tomorrow at 2
Awesome.
for our video call lesson. I did have some stuff kind of prepared when we spoke. I mean, I had originally planned on, I had downloaded some stories of increasing difficulty in the present progressive, just to kind of get a gauge, trying to do somewhat of an assessment. But I think, and I did when I was down. I actually was down at the offices when I collected all the other materials, and I did manage to grab some articles in that the newspaper articles that they have, all different. I got basically the last 4 copies of the kind of the instructional newspaper articles. So that's what we're going to do, and hopefully she seems to be comfortable about meeting in person. So I guess I need to coordinate with her a time, and also coordinate with Tammy or whoever it is down at the offices to, I mean, the weather seems to be beautiful, like for the next 10 days. So maybe we could do it outside under one of those trees or any subsequent, otherwise, we'll just, so I will let people know.
Awesome. All right, cool. So Britt, how were your results?
Oh, we got along fantastically. She's really happy, and it's going to be fun. She's so advanced, and she was thrilled that I'm an editor because she's a perfectionist, and she really wants every word to be just right. And so I'm going to just treat her like any one of my reporters that I had and correct her stories into, what would be normal English. And I mean, she's so good. I mean, I've had native English speakers who wrote worse stories than she did. So,
So
it's going to be good.
that brings up an interesting point. If you think about the student pool that you work with, if a student gets to an advanced level, usually it means that they have good work ethic. They also have dedication, probably respect for the learning process and the teachers involved. So it is a pleasure usually to work with students who are selectively progressing from one level to the next. Because if they have difficulty with the material, or if they are not serious students, they fall out at various levels. So if you're at the beginning level, I'm not saying that this is the case for Ruth, but you might have a student who isn't really engaged in the learning process. She hasn't really begun, so she hasn't invested her years of time into this, and she's staring down a large project, so that's hard to begin. So it could be part of the reason why someone might, at that level, be hard to get onto the track. But if they get onto the track, that's probably the most important thing, because they say that the hardest thing is starting. So if you get on the track from the beginning and you develop this sustainable program, this is from week 1, if you get on a sustainable program and you look at it like going to the gym and you develop the self-discipline to finish, you can't fail. Anyone can learn a language. We all did when we were born. So if you don't stop, you will succeed. So consistency is important. And I don't know if you could pass on those words to Masha, Ruth, but we'll see.
Okay.
So let's move on to the next section, which is the key takeaways of this entire course. So what you've learned, you could apply to many situations in a tutoring or teaching career. So if you are successful with this student that you're working with now, by all means, take on another one. If you have time. Let's see. So week 1, there were 2 key takeaways from week 1. Those were the key values of the personal trainer and speaking as the core of language learning. So, question 1. How does a personal trainer help a client? Do you remember? If you don't remember, go ahead and just say it, because you know how the many ways that a trainer helps a client. So what are some? Go ahead,
To
Ruth.
help you develop your goal, develop a path to reaching your goal.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I forget the actual word, but that was it.
In effect, that's it. So cool thing about language is if you have a meaning in mind, there's many ways you can say it. So that's one way. There were 4 in total. So what's another way that a trainer could help the client?
I remember motivate and encourage.
Yes. So if consistency is a problem, that might just be a problem of desire. So as soon as someone has the encouragement and the environment, encouragement is basically the environment. When you come here, you create an experience where the person wants to continue. So it enhances the chance that they will be consistent. Okay, so that's 2. We have determining goals and going after them. Then we have our second one, which is motivation and encouragement. So it's 2 more. Let's go ahead and take a look at the slide, because this question was exactly from week 1, and this was the slide. So here's the 4. So we have identifies the position of the client. It's maybe so simple you don't think of it, But when you meet the person, you have to assess, well, where are they coming from and what skills do they have? So 2, identifies the goals of the client and then plans a way forward. So those are kind of related. The identification step I would put as separate. You identify what the goal is, because then there's the creative and logistical step of thinking about how do we go forward. And again, we have the key, motivation, and encouragement. Okay. Question 2. Which of the 6 primary skills is the most efficient to practice? So 6 primary skills, what was that? Again, this was the slide. Which of the 6 primary skills is the most efficient to practice?
Speaking.
That's right.
Yeah, I would say that.
Speaking? Yeah,
Listening,
Why?
speaking.
because the first or the initial?
It's a good point, but I don't know exactly what you mean when you say that's the first or initial.
Well, I think I'm looking at my notes and I'm trying to think that what we had was that it was they learn auditory and they're speaking with you first before they're starting to read or if they're writing.
That is exactly right. Probably that is part of the process. If you want to learn a language, you should receive it the same way that you received your first language, which was auditorily.
Mm-hmm.
Right, you learn the sound system. You can't underestimate the importance of the sound system. It's one of the shames because things like Sanskrit and ancient Greek or Latin, probably you cannot produce exactly how it was. Probably you are intelligible if you read it or speak it, but I guarantee you it's not the same as it was. So yes, there's a number of reasons. One, there's the benefit of hearing it, but basically there's this input aspect, which is auditory. You have to comprehend what the other person is saying. At the same time, there's a real-time pressure on you to produce the language. Writing, there's a lot of back and forth. Like you can make it out perfect, and then you can correct it as you're going. So the way it's structured, the final product you see, oh look, it's a good sentence. But that's not going to be efficient or intelligible in a spoken exchange as you're trying to like put the words together and go back, oh, I'm sorry, this is what I meant. Cool. There we go. Spoiler. Can you identify 4 ways to incorporate speaking into your lessons? On the next slide, I have 4, which I gave you during that week. But can you think of any ways? So can you identify 4 ways to incorporate speaking into your lessons?
You could have them read out loud, read a story or something out loud.
That is true.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What?
Conversation games, if I recall, correct?
Yes, games. Conversation games are great. I think Ruth has something on the tip of her tongue.
I do not.
I misread your face.
No, I do not. I remember the games. I'm going to look back at my notes again. I have to
Right.
look.
This is structuring, right? To
Oh,
draw deep. Go ahead.
no, I don't have an answer yet. I'm still looking.
So we're drawing deep. I was explaining today why I prefer paper books to electronic books. Well, the reason is when I handle the book, I get a sense of where the information was physically. So I can look back and try and search for it. So I think when you make notes for yourself, it's the same way. When you come to a review session like this, now you're getting a sense of where you wrote that stuff down, and you have to review it, which makes it deeper in your long-term memory, theoretically. So let's take a look at the ones that were from week 1. It's 5 weeks ago, it's a long time. So free conversation, that means just talk with them. Facilitated and leveled conversation, which is not really a natural exchange. Oh my goodness, the meeting will end in 10 minutes. I guess we'll have to find a way.
What?
So yeah, they want my money. It's not going to happen. I think we're going to have to go to Google Meet. Everyone has a Gmail?
Yeah.
All right, so I hope that Zoom is spying on us, which probably they are. And we're going to let Google spy on us. How's that sound? Okay. So yeah, free conversation, facilitated or leveled conversation basically means it's not a natural exchange in a way. You're asking questions to make the person continue to talk. There's not a period of where one person is a listener and then the next person is the listener. It's usually just the interrogator, which can be good depending on your level. Okay. Then conversation games, and again, the audio lingual method. I liked Britt's idea also, which was the reading. However, it's more receptive than communicative. So yes, the person's pronunciation will be corrected, but they're not actually producing an original sentence from their brain. Nothing wrong with this exercise, but it's not exactly the same as original speech. Okay, so let's move quickly and see how far we can get through this, because there's actually not so much. Okay, so week 2, there were 3 key takeaways: how to handle big goals, stackable lesson plans, and activity choice. So first thing, question 4, what are the 3 steps in the 3-step process to tackle a big accumulation goal? Let me see if I can.
Breaking it down into smaller pieces.
Yes, very nice. What else?
I think.
All right, I'm not going to lie. I'm reading from my notes.
Go ahead. That's
Work
exactly. Go ahead.
Work towards component objectives with incremental training sessions, if I can read my shorthand.
Yes. Okay. Ruth, you want to finish that?
Incremental activities.
Beautiful. Yes. So let's take a look at the slide. This was it. So break the big objective into component objectives and arrange them progressively. So there's many things that you could probably do. You want to do them in a logical order. That's progressively. It may not necessarily be what the easiest things you do first and then you leave the harder things. It might be. But if you put them in a progressive order, basically that means that doing it this way will make you make progress. So number 2, incremental training sessions. So that's going to the gym every week. Right? Don't miss a week unless you need to rest because you have an injury. All right, so number 3, incremental activities. So inside the training session, you need to do things which are a good use of your time. Usually there's a logical progression if you're going to learn a main point for that lesson. But again, you could do several unrelated things. I just don't think it'd be as efficient. Okay, so question 5. Can you describe the stackable lesson model from the second week? I called it the unit lesson model or the progressive model before. Changing the name a third time. It's now going to be the stackable lesson model.
Lesson model.
That's the 7 things, correct?
That's right. What were they?
I know one was mock reality. I think that was either the first or last. I can't, if depending, I guess, how we progress with it.
It's first in importance and last in sequence.
Oh,
The mechanics.
Yes.
Wait, now I'm going to just cheat and I'm just going to read it.
Please, by all means.
I'm reading my notes. The human interest, and then
Yes.
contextualize, the introductory, and then your warm up. You try it out again, and you try again.
It's great.
And
So
then,
I don't mean to interrupt, but let me make an important point about the human interest. So that's, in my opinion, that's what produces good results. It's not just about what happens naturally, because people are coming into the class, say, hey, how was your week? No. In fact, if you start that way, it always seems like the rest of the interaction goes very well. Because if I've met students online for the first time and we get right down to business, I think I said this last time, I usually don't see them again. It's a great lesson. Wow. Like we didn't waste a single second. But when we said, oh, my name's Tim, I'm from here. What did you do today? It's like, oh, I did this. Oh, you like that. That's great. That actually creates a pleasant and memorable experience. If you're a business transaction, you're a business transaction. Next. So going back to your experience again, Ruth, if you create the personal connection, then Masha won't feel that she is hurting a human being by wasting their time. So that's where, if you're a friend, friends don't hurt friends. But if you're a professional and a client, and in a way you are, then simply it could be like, when I need the professional, I'll go see them, and so on. Okay. By the way, when Zoom kicks us out, the first thing I'll try is to start a new meeting, and I'll send you the email. Second thing I'll try is Google Meet, because we all have a Gmail. That will probably invite you also. It's just that we're all familiar with the Zoom, so it should be no problem. But Google Meet will be the same way. You'll get an email with a link. Just click on that. And simple enough. Okay. So we'll see how that works. So everything you just said is right here. They stack like ladders, bringing you up to your goal. Okay. So I'm glad that Tom mentioned the mock reality, because that is your goal every lesson. You want this to be something you can use for real. Best way to do that is to simulate reality and how an individual skill might be used. Okay, let's move on. Question 6. When choosing an activity, what should you always ask yourself? So this was here. You're finding, what can I put inside of these things or anything? What should you ask yourself about that activity?
You should always ask if it requires spoken communication.
Exactly. Just because you can study a language independently, if you're working with another person, you should take advantage of that situation. So activity choice, just like you said, does the activity require spoken communication? All right, that applies to the classroom also. If you're in the class, have the students talk to each other. If you're one-on-one tutor, same thing, talk. All right, week 3. Three key takeaways. Preparation guidelines, the resources and tools for video calls. Okay, preparation guideline. What is the rule of thumb for preparation time?
The lesson plan is twice as long as the lesson.
Yeah, the planning process from concept to preparation of all the materials takes about twice as long as actually teaching it in general. All right, so this is the slide. I told you that that was more accurate for classroom teaching, less accurate for tutoring, because there's fewer variables. It might actually take you less time. That's if you do preparation. As we said, we could improvise. So question 8. What 4 factors can minimize preparation time? You know, Tom wasn't here, so I don't know, should he be exempt? The video was up there. You could have watched the video.
And I'm trying to decipher the notes I took off the video.
Oh.
Let's take a look. Ready? So 1 is experience. If you do this a lot, you eliminate the learning component and you basically just perform what you know well. Then there's knowledge of the student. So if you know your student, you know where you are. You know what will help them, what they like to do, and so on. Just removing the considerations. Again, knowing the types of students probably is most relevant when you have more than 1 student to work with, as in a class, or when you're meeting a student for the first time. And number 4, the ready resources. Take a close look at that. What's number 1?
References.
References.
All right, number 2.
Games.
And number 3.
Tools.
Okay, so what were the 3 types of resources covered in week 3?
Ready resources.
I'm going to hazard a guess and